You are now listening to Thinking Out Loud with your hosts, J.Lib and J.Rhodes.
Thinking Out Loud, we back at it, man. It's your boy J.Lib, and I'm back with my co-host J.Rhodes. J.Rhodes, what's good?
What's good, bro? Glad to see you over that little bout with the flu or whatever that was.
Hey, man, don't put my business out there, but I'm back in full effect, 100% health. I want to apologize to everybody. Like I said before, this past 2 weeks, man, your boy been going through a storm, but I came out on the other side. All glory to God. So, I'm all good, and we back at it. This train ain't stopping. We keeping it moving, thinking out loud. And we are blessed this evening to have the company of a special guest, my man X. What's good?
What's going on? What's going on? Appreciate you guys having me.
And the reason why this guest is so special tonight is because we're going to dive into a discussion that is not very comfortable for a lot of people to talk about. It's not something that's a popular discussion point. Basically, to put it out there, we're going to go in tonight on the Black Fraternity and the impact of the hazing process, or the process, quote unquote, that we'll call it, to cross over into the Black fraternity organizations that most of us know and love. Tonight, that's going to be the discussion point, and the trigger for this is the movie Burning Sands. Burning Sands is a Netflix original that had debuted a couple weeks ago, and I've been wanting to reach out to somebody that's been a part of the Black fraternity experience outside of myself. To anybody that don't know, I was involved in a process. I dropped. That's just what it is, the truth of the matter. But I needed somebody to have the dialogue with that actually crossed and then remain a member. So for the sake of the conversation, my man X is going to provide some feedback and his viewpoints and his basically opinion, open and honest, on this discussion. So I'm very excited about this topic. I appreciate X for taking the time to come out. We're going to leave out the details as far as specifically fraternity or the university. None of that matters at this point. We're just going to dive in. So, X, thinking about the movie Burning Sands, I want to get your opinion. What did you think of the film?
Well, first off, it was it's from an outsider they call it hazing, but from the inside we call it pledging.
Okay.
As far as the movie goes, I really enjoyed the movie. It was I felt a lot of aspects of the movie, although some of them were extreme. There was a lot of the aspects of the movie that hit very, very close to home.
Go deeper into that. What do you mean? What specifically was close to home to you in your experience?
I mean, there was many different aspects from pledgee point of view, from the dean point of view, from the professional point of view. All aspects were hit in this movie, and you can tell someone somewhere who worked on this movie had actually been through the process.
Okay, and I think either the director or the creator of the film was actually a member of a Black fraternity. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, you mentioned kind of three different aspects. You said the pledgee, and then what were the other two?
You have your dean, or the ones that are in charge of getting the boys or the pledges that get them right. It was basically the members that were on campus. If you remember, they were going door to door in the morning to drop off some coffee or some bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits or something. They're using their last bit of money or trying to get money to get these things that these boys on campus wanted them to have. Wanted to have from them. Wanted them to get.
Right. So you mentioned, you got the pledgees, which are the young men who are trying to be a part of the organization. Then you have the brothers, the actual fraternity members.
Yes, the ones that the young ones, the ones that just crossed. So basically, they're in charge of the campus life.
Okay, and then you mentioned a third party. You said like the professionals. What is that referring to?
Yeah, well, of course, you had the dean of the school, who was an actual member of their fraternity. And then you have the doctors and the lawyers and anyone else who was calling and contacting and telling them, you can get this or you can get that as soon as you cross, So you have that aspect as well.
So with those three parts of the experience, you said that you've been a part of, or what parts of that were you in your experience with the organization?
Well, I've been in my particular fraternity for about, 15 years now. I'm an old head, even though it just seems like yesterday, time is flying. The game is moving, processes are changing. So I've witnessed and been a part of every aspect, in my life. And I
Okay.
understand, and I can understand every piece of what this movie was talking about. It actually had me thinking for about maybe a week later, just like, damn, that it just had me shaking my head, or even by the end of the movie, had me tear up because I of what the boys just wanted to be a part of the process. They didn't want the bad to happen to him. When he looked up at the end, it was like, has this happened before? When dude was just breathing and they was telling him to drop him off at the hospital and bounce.
Oh, you know what? And let me also give a spoiler alert for anybody listening right now. So, the Burning Sands movie, if you haven't watched it yet, turn this podcast off right now because we about to dive into all the details. So, basically, to make a long story short, the Burning Sands on Netflix is about a group of young men who are attempting to join a fraternity. They go through the process, and at the end of the process, of course, the movie depicts the struggles that they went through, the adversity and the challenges, and also the victories. They get to the end of the process. I think they called it Hell Night or some type of equivalent to that, where there's this final night before they officially are accepted into the organization, where there's a lot of activity, we'll call it. And through that activity, one of the members ends up receiving a fatal wound that causes them to have to drop that individual off at the hospital and basically hope for the best as far as medical treatment, and that individual actually dies. So I guess to take it a step back for a minute, Rose, you haven't been a part of the process, so you watching it just as an individual, what was your perspective on the movie? Like, what did you gather from it, or what was your opinion about it?
Well, first of all, I thought it was a very well made movie as a filmmaker myself. Although I never pledged, I definitely was curious about joining an organization back in college. I was kind of torn between two organizations, but never really made myself known to be interested. And largely because I knew that there was some initiation process. I put it like that. And as an outsider watching this film, you grow attached to the main character. He's so pressed to join. His father didn't make it, so he's even more determined to make it due to his father dropping out or dropping line. And to me, as an outsider, my question would be to you, Mr. X, is why is it so important, or why is that such an important focus for the physical hazing or physical process? Like, why is that so important, at least in the Black Greek culture?
Let's take it a step back for a second and explain what was the physical part of the film that was depicted for people who hadn't seen it. So, what did we see?
I mean, we saw paddling. We definitely saw some physical punches and gang up beatings. I don't know if you want to call it, but just some wrestling, some punches. I mean, there was in the beginning of the movie, remember that gruesome kick? It was a very severe kick to the rib cage area, and that was actually kind of like the plot line throughout the movie, which the main character was pretty much hiding his fractured rib from his friends throughout the whole movie.
Right. So in the movie we saw a lot of it was violence. Let's just call it what it is. We saw a lot of violence. It was a lot of physical activity that was occurring that wasn't just, how you would say, it didn't seem appropriate for trying to accomplish any type of goal setting or any type of enrichment of the individual. It seemed that there were scenes where, like, the paddling, so we talk about that, what they call, taking wood, from what I recall, there was a period where, people are basically getting whoopings, as I would call it as a child, getting whoopings with, a wooden paddle across, their ass. We see one point where one of the bros ends up taking the paddle and he's getting ready to crack the dude in the back with the paddle, and the dean tries to step up and he's like, nah, chill. And the bruh kind of goes, fall back, I'm the big homie, I'm going to do what I do. And to co-sign on what J.Rhodes was saying and kind of bring it back to you, X, what is the purpose of that level of what seems to be extreme violence to somebody who's not a part of the process? I can tell you myself, I witnessed that, and, it requires a suspension of reality to be able to endure that, because as a man, if you're struck in any way, whether it be a chest slap, a back slap, or taking wood, paddling, whatever you want to call it, it's your innate nature to want to respond to that and be like, what the hell is this? Like, we about to scrap, we about to go at it, but you can't do that because you're trying to be a part of what they are, and so you endure it. So help us understand from your experience when you were a pledgee, what was your mindset, and how do you rationalize that?
Well, as a pledgee, basically, you got what I want, and I'm not going to let anybody do anything to me. There's nothing that you can do to me to stop me from getting what I want in life.
Okay, go on.
So when you're online, your whole mind state has to be, I'm going to make it.
Okay.
There's nothing that anybody can do to me to stop me from getting what I want. You understand?
Yeah.
And all of those bros in front of you are trying to make you drop. They don't want you in it unless you got what it takes. They don't want you to be a part of their fraternity of what they got to give or what they have in the bond unless you real, unless they know that you can go through what they went through. Now let me repeat that. Unless they know that you can go through what they went through. Okay. So I'm gonna bring it back to one of the original questions. Why would you let why do they do it? Why did it get to the extreme? Now this picture shows the extreme on most of the occasions. You want to know why about the paddling and why about the pledging process, or how some would say hazing. Right now, what I would tell you is that what I was told was that you need to break the people down to the most humblest form, right? And by that, it's from what I was given, it was basically brought back to the slave days, how they were beaten down and broken as men, to able to understand the humility of what our culture has actually been through. One has to, subject people to that and be the person who actually is broken to the lowest level before you're able to get built up. So basically, you have to walk through the fire to actually understand what came before.
Okay, and I get that. That's very, I would say, that's synonymous with what I've heard about people who join the military or armed forces. They say we break you down to build you up. So I get the piece on, breaking, tearing someone down from a humility perspective. But you mentioned it's remnant of slavery. Why would we, as black people, try to replicate the abuse that we received during slavery for an organization that, for the most part, for every organization, every black fraternity I've been aware of, it's all about brotherhood, unity, service. It's all these positive things. So why would we try to replicate the treatment of slavery to allow someone to prove that they're worthy of joining this organization?
Well, I mean that's a very sound question, but how I would depict that is basically having to go through it. If you're not having to go through it, you will never understand. You will never understand what it felt like. That was there was 400 years of slavery. We're only when the fraternities first came into started. You understand? I mean, what it was only it was less than 100 years.
Sure. Right.
So there was probably a generation who had gone and been in slavery. So basically it's a build up from then. Okay. So we have to make sure that people understand where we're at. We have to make sure that people understand what we've been through. And if you haven't been through it, well, look, I'm going to show you, and then we're going to show you afterwards what we can do to better our communities.
I hear you, and I'm not discrediting anything you've said, but I still got the question of, it sounds like you're saying that the violence, the abuse, the process is remnant of a time where black people were subject to that type of behavior that made us less than human. I mean, you wouldn't beat a dog. You wouldn't, paddle whip, a dog or any of that. So we're treating our brethren as subhuman to show them what someone went through during slavery. It's 2017, bro. Like, why why is that still the status quo? Like, why?
And once again, we're very far removed. We don't really understand. I don't really understand sometimes, but
Wait,
all I know
what
is
do you mean by you don't really understand? Because you're the expert on this. So in this discussion, you're the
right,
person who was a pledgee, then you became a
hmm
bruh, and then you're a
right,
professional now. So you've
right.
been through three facets of the paradigm of this
Mm.
process and what the black fraternity represents. So I know you personally are a respectable person. I don't interact with you in any way that I feel like you are less than. You've always come across to me as a very knowledgeable, educated brother, and so that's why your opinion on this is so critical. Why is it necessary specifically for the black fraternity experience to get to a point where you got people that have broken ribs, broken bones, organ failure, and then also we know that there's instances where people have actually died trying to cross the quote unquote burning sands. Why is that so important?
Well, there are a lot of things that I do not understand. You know what I mean? I cannot say to you why the process started from the beginning. I wasn't there. I wasn't one of the original initiates to say, okay, this is what you must go through. All I can do is make sure that as time goes on, people learn from the mistakes of the chapter. There's been tragic losses.
Well, speak
There's
on
been
that. Speak on that.
tragic happenings.
Now I know when we talked before the podcast, you
On what?
you
On
you
what?
gave me some examples of some of the tragedies that have occurred, especially when you were in the process. So speak on that for a minute, just to kind of bring some levity to the conversation. Speak on the female situation that happened with the sorority in the ocean.
Oh well, I mean, I have seen broken ribs. People get their ribs broken. I have seen arms and shoulders come out of socket. I have seen. I have known the women that actually pledged the other women that were swimming at night and got caught in the undertow in the ocean in California and then lost their lives. I cannot explain the situations. Each organization has their own process, but I can guarantee that 99% of the time it's an unfortunate accident.
Mm.
Nothing. Some people act with malice. Some people do, but then it's a learning process that's been handed down from generation to generation. And as I was pledging, if I did not believe that my big bro had gone through this before,
Hmm.
had this happened not before, I would have probably took a nine to him. I'd have probably went and grabbed mine and shot these bros that were doing this to me. That's exactly how you feel. You're like
Right.
you're like, nah, excuse my language, but fuck this. I'm not gonna allow. That's your first instinct. But with restraint, it has
No
actually,
need to excuse this, man. It's thinking out loud. We just say what it is.
right. That will the thing is it's like I felt like that while I was online. I'm not, but afterwards, after the fact, it made me a better man. It had
Mm.
made me have more restraint from going maybe to get my gas or get my shit out my trunk, my car. For real. It put me in a position where I actually had to think, and I had that advantage over the situation because of what I had been through.
So you're saying from the process, from you going through that, we don't. You said it's called quote unquote hazing, but we'll just say hazing for a lack of better terms. From you going through the process, you're saying that you're a better person now, having gone through that. Is that a fact?
I have to agree totally. I mean, there are aspects of the process that has led to bettering myself as an
Okay.
individual.
Okay. So that's my next question, Mr. X, because you had mentioned earlier that when you're online, you're determined to make it. Like it's a clear goal. Like, I want to be Greek. I want to be a part of this organization. If you're not a part of that Greek world, it looks like, oh, I get to wear certain colors. There's certain prominent historical figures who've been a part of this organization. And then you say, well, if I want to be a part of that, I need to make it through the process. And the process comes with a lot of sleepless nights, dipping grades. Because obviously, you're sacrificing your studies for this process. You're sacrificing what little money you may have for the process, along with your body and mental well-being. What is it about being a part of an organization that justifies that type of sacrifice and also makes you a better person, as you put it?
I mean, when you're a young man in college, you don't know where you want to do. You don't know where you want to be. You don't know. You're basically trying to find yourself, right? And you really don't know what type of man that you are, or at least I didn't. I don't know about at 21 where you guys knew where you are. But when I think back about what I wanted in my goals, this was one of the things that helped me find out, well, how much do I really want this? And what will I do? What will I sacrifice to get it?
But why though?
It's definitely for self. Whatever reason that you have. It's whatever reason that the individual has.
Well, I'll tell you this. When I was going through the process, I joined the process because one of my best friends, one of my closest friends, he was down with it. I had a couple of other, brethren, a part of my circle that was down with it, and we were all like, let's do this. We saw, from my perspective, we saw a unity. We saw every party we went to when it was time for brothers to stroll. We saw that unity when they started stepping. We saw that unity. We saw them around campus. We saw that unity. And then even community service, we saw, helping out, just different ventures that kind of solidified, okay, this is something positive. This is something that I want to be a part of because it represents something bigger than myself. However, in my experience,
I can't have no half-ass. I can't have no half-ass, bro. Period out. I need to know. As a bro, I need to know that you're willing to go through what I went through, what my founders believe, or my chapter believe what to be true. But I need to know that you down for not just for the pledging, but for all the works and acts that come afterwards.
But in that same token, it's almost like the process should be then show me your community service, show me your brotherhood, show me your ability to have loyalty, and that's all the things that most of the fraternities represent, the black fraternities at least. And so at no point is the process exposed as being, oh, by the way, you got to be able to take these lumps when it comes to chest slaps, back slaps, taking wood, Hell Night, all of that stuff.
If you can't take the small stuff, because to me that's small.
Whoa! How's that small?
To me, that's small.
but you yourself. Okay, let me take it a step back. In the movie Burning Sands, one of the main character suffers from broken ribs the entire movie. And his girl is telling him, you need to get that shit checked out. It's all good, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to keep pushing. And then he continues.
That's one of those extreme circumstances. In that movie, the older bro had malice. He was mad. He was angry.
Right, but there was no stopping him.
And it's unfortunate that it happened.
It's unfortunate, but
it was just unfortunate.
But what's the risk versus reward in that situation? Because now you're basically saying that you're running a gambit when it comes to joining a fraternity. You may have an older bruh or a big bruh, whatever you want to call it, that has malice in his heart, and he takes that malice off on your ass.
Truth. And it happens all the time.
Okay, so now it's not even a once in a while thing. Now it happens all the time. In your words, it happens all the time. So how do?
Well, I'm saying in a general sense, and through all the ones that have the process,
right?
The go through the process. I'm not talking about like I said, I've seen in my 15 years, I've only seen a handful of those occasions when something that extremes happen.
But you still saw it. That's the thing.
But you have to understand. There's hundreds that I've seen. I've been a part of hundreds of processes. I've seen at least 150 lines being made.
See,
not just from my chapter, but from others across the region and the nation itself.
Now, Mr. X, we're not trying to attack fraternities at all. But I guess what Lip and I are trying to understand is You had mentioned that like the back slaps and the taking the wood, that's small stuff. If you can't,
Right.
and you had said something to the effect of, if you can't stand with me for that, you can't stand with me for the big stuff. I guess our question is, why does the physical hazing, why is that such an important part as opposed to testing the knowledge, their commitment to the community and being an upstanding member of the organization as opposed to the physical element of it?
Exactly. That's my question too.
Oh, well, it's fickle. It's a fickle point because it's like if you can't stand with me for through this process, you can't stand with me when I really need you. How do I know that I can actually lean on you? How do I know that you're going to be there as a bruh? Are you not, or are you just going to leave when everything gets hard? Leave
But how
when
many?
things
But how
things
many
don't go right.
times? How many times in your life though? Like how many times in your life as a 15-year veteran in your fraternity? How many times have you actually had to rely on somebody when you were getting beaten to step in and be able to be accountable and be responsible for your well-being? And
Well, you're talking about when you're talking about a beating, like it seems like you're making it sound like these pledgees is getting their ass whooped for real, like
bro,
getting stomped.
okay,
You know,
so now this is what I like to call the honesty hour because in my experience, and again, I'm not ashamed to say it, I pledged and I dropped because when I went to the informational meeting about the fraternity, it was a very upstanding, upright, we're asking questions like, what's your GPA? What is your loyalty? They gave us different questions about how you would fit into what the fraternity represents. So we provide
there are
examples.
some aspects. There are some aspects. I'm sorry to cut you off. There are some aspects of the movie that I would never let go down. Like I said, it was an extreme.
Let's be
Like when the
specific.
dude spit.
Like what?
Well, when the dude spit in his face, oh my God, I was like, never have I ever seen that done, and never would I allow it as an individual.
Okay, and
You
I'm
know
with
that
that. I'm with that. So, but I
there's,
would tell
like
you
I said,
from the experience that I had, I'd rather take being spit in the face than having my chest pushed in.
yeah, that was very very unfortunate and very extreme of the chest being pushed in and him actually losing his life because his lungs collapsed. That's what I have to feel. That's very extreme and irresponsible of the chapter. That was
But you,
very
but you acknowledge though that those things happen, and it's an
it,
unfortunate circumstance of the process.
in that situation. There was a lot of negative push from around. Even there was no knowledge being taught as to the reasons why. It didn't seem like to me that there was no buildup of these young men from the movie perspective, because you can only capture a certain light. The movie in the whole was probably a majority negative view of the process, but there are bros that shine light. There are bros that are there for these individuals so they don't have to go through the process by themselves. So it didn't really actually depict the building. It didn't actually depict the brotherhood being made, the bonds being made with the ones that are online. There are aspects that wasn't involved in the movie itself that should have been portrayed, but the overall tone of the movie was, it was very very it was deep. Like I
So,
said, it was deep.
so share with us what are the positives that come from that experience. So, what are the positives that come from? I'm gonna just give a quick little, background. There's a process where we were what you call squires, and we all had our tags, and we had to go do set. And at set, you come down into the basement, you link up, and then when you do that, at a certain point, you take your shirt off. So now you like bare chested, bare back, and we linking up. They're asking us questions. We spit in history. If somebody messes up, they get their chest slapped, they get their back slapped, and then at a certain point when somebody asks a question or you can't answer, somebody got to take wood. So when they tell you to take wood, that's literally squatting, grab your nuts, and then you basically are taking a paddling which can last as long as the bros want. What about that process makes you better? Because for me, it hurt to see my friends and the people that I consider, close to me that I'm on this line with to be abused. Like, what? How is that strengthening a person? Help me understand the mental divide between, somebody slaps me on the street, we about to air this shit out, and if I'm in that basement and somebody slaps me, I just gotta take it because it's supposed to make me better. Help me. What the fuck? Help me understand how that makes you stronger.
Life is hard, man.
No,
I'm sure.
no,
Sure.
it ain't about life though. Like, this is you trying to
It
join
is.
a club, though.
All right, let them talk. Let them talk.
Life is hard, man. If you can't take a little slap,
Nah, see,
a little bit of wood.
no, it's not a little bit of wood though, bro. It's you squatting down with your ass out, and somebody is swinging.
That's
like,
how I feel. That's how I feel. It's just. I mean, you can't knock me for how I feel. You know what I mean? It's like,
bro, they
it's like if
Barry
you
Bonds
can't
on
take
your
it.
ass though. They swinging that paddle to.
But it's not a bat. It's a thin, you know
It's
what
a
I'm saying?
flat bat.
It's not a bar. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
It's not nothing that you can't physically take.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna be the judge of that, and we're gonna take a pause right now. We're gonna separate this shit. Episode 1 of this discussion. Y'all heard it here first. We appreciate you, X, coming through with the full disclosure. I appreciate my homie, co-host, J.Rhodes, and we're going to be back at it. Part 2 of this conversation next Friday at noon. Stay tuned. Thinking Out Loud. This is what we do. We out.
This episode of Thinking Out Loud was executive produced by J. Lip. Music provided by Daisy Smith. Artwork and logo provided by Rob D. And sponsored by you, the people. We thank you for listening.